Lesson 2. The main menu. Hello fellow game designers, welcome to the Wicked Cat Unity Introduction course. Today we are going to continue to explore the Unity menu bar, with a special focus on the project settings, under the Edit menu. Step 3. The project settings. On the main menu bar, under Edit, you will find the project settings. Here you can change several options of your current project, like the audio, the input or the graphics. Keep in mind that when you change a value from this menu, you will be changing the entire project, not just the scene you are working on. The first option you will find on this menu is Input. Once you select it, the Inspector tab will show you the Input Manager. The Input Manager is where you define all the different input axes and game actions for your project. On Size, you can define the number of axes for your project. You can add a new one or delete the existing ones by changing this value. All the axes that you set up in the Input Manager serve two purposes. They allow you to reference your inputs by axis name in scripting. And they allow the players of your game to customize the controls to their liking. Note that the defined axes will be presented to the player when the game launches. He will be able to see the axis name, detailed description, and default buttons. This allows the player to have the option to change any of the buttons defined in the axes. Therefore, it is best to write your scripts making use of axes instead of individual buttons. Below the size, you will find several defined axes. Unity, by default, already has 15 different axes defined for your project. If you click on the arrow before the axe name, the Unity editor will show you the properties of that particular axe. On Name, you can define the string that refers to the axis in the game launcher and through scripting. The descriptive name and the descriptive negative name allows you to give detailed definition for the positive and negative buttons. The negative button is the one that will send a negative value to the axis, while the positive button will send a positive value. The Alt negative button and the Alt positive button are the secondary buttons that will send values to the axis. On Gravity, you define how fast will be the input recenter. On Dead, you define a value for approximations. Any positive or negative values that are less than this number will register as 0. The Sensitivity allows you to define the sensitivity of the input. For keyboard input, a larger value will result in faster response time. A lower value will be more smooth. For mouse delta, the value will scale the actual mouse delta. If the snap option is enabled, the axis value will be immediately reset to 0 after it receives opposite inputs. If invert is enabled, the positive buttons will send negative values to the axis, and vice versa. On Type, you can either choose key or mouse button, mouse movement, or joystick axis. The axis lets you define the input from the device. Finally, the joynum defines which joystick should be used. By default, this is set to retrieve the input from all joysticks. This is only used for input axes and not buttons. The next option on the project settings is Tags and Layers. As you can see on the Inspector tab, we have 3 different areas: Tags, Sorting Layers, and Layers. Tags are marker values that can be used to identify objects in your project. You can add new tags by typing in the empty element at the bottom of the list of tags, or by increasing the size value. Decreasing the size will remove tags from the end of the list. Sorting layers are used with sprite graphics in the 2D system. The sorting refers to the overlay order of different sprites. You can add and remove sorting layers using the plus and minus buttons. Finally, the layers are used throughout Unity as a way to create groups of objects that share particular characteristics. Usually, they are used to restrict operations such as raycasting or rendering. That way they are only applied to the groups of objects that are relevant. The first 8 layers are defaults used by Unity and are not editable. Layers from 8 to 31 can be given custom names, however, the number of layers cannot be increased. The Audio option opens the Audio Manager on the Inspector tab. Here, you can change the audio settings for your project. On Volume, you can set the volume of all sounds that are playing. The roll-off scale sets the global attenuation roll-off factor. The higher the value, the faster the volume will attenuate. Conversely, the lower the value, the slower it will attenuate. The value of 1 simulates the real world. The speed of sound, as you may have guessed, defines the speed of sound in your game. The Doppler factor lets you define how audible the Doppler effect is. It can vary from 0 to 1. Default speaker mode defines which speaker mode should be the default for your project. You can choose between raw, mono, stereo, quad, surround, surround 5.1, surround 7.1, or Prologic DTs. On the DSP buffer size, you can either choose the default, best latency, good latency, or best performance. When the Disable Audio option is enabled, it deactivates the audio system in standalone builds. The next option on the project settings is Time. This will open the Time Manager on your Inspector tab. Here you can define the fixed time step, the maximum allowed time step, and the time scale. Fixed time stepping is very important to guarantee a stable physics simulation. The physics calculations are performed in discrete fixed time steps that are not dependent on frame rate. This allows the simulation to be more consistent across different machines. The smaller the value of fixed time step, the more frequently physics will be calculated. However, the simulation will be heavier for the CPU. The maximum allowed time step ensures that physics calculations will not run longer than the specified threshold. The time scale is the speed at which time progress. You can change this value to simulate, for example, bullet time effects. The value of 1 means real time, while the value of 0.5 means half speed, and 2 is double speed. The fifth option on the project settings is Player. This will open the player settings on the Inspector tab. As you may recall from the first video of Lesson 2, here you can change several parameters of your project build, like the resolution, the project icon, or the splash image. On the next video, we will continue to explore the project settings and what they do. Please, don't forget to subscribe our channel and leave a like on the video. If you have any doubts or feedback, use the comment section below. We hope you enjoyed the video. Keep doing awesome games, and have a nice day.